Daniel stood beside his mother's grave, overwhelmed by grief and a compulsion to unearth her coffin. He had been plagued by unsettling dreams and an unshakable feeling that something was amiss since her burial. Daniel had a close bond with his mother, and the desire to see her one last time had become unbearable. After days of inner turmoil, he approached the local priest, Father Michael, who had known their family for years. Daniel's eyes were bloodshot from sleepless nights as he implored, "Father Michael, I need to see my mother again. I don't know why, but something inside me tells me I have to open her coffin." Daniel was determined to find a way to dig up the coffin. Daniel, however, would not take no for an answer. He was going to find a way. A few days later, he found himself at the cemetery, staring at his mother's coffin, which he had just dug up from its grave. Now it was time to open it. Father Michael had just arrived and caught Daniel in the act after receiving some calls about a grave robber, but when Daniel showed him what was inside the coffin, he gasped. "I need to call the police," he whispered. Why did Daniel want to dig up his mother's coffin? And what did he find inside it? Why did they call the police? But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. That's it, I just have to do something. I can't ignore this any longer. Daniel thought to himself as he woke up from another dream about his mother. She suddenly passed away after getting in a terrible car accident a couple of months ago, and he simply could not deal with the fact that his mother was gone. This has to be some kind of sign, he thought to himself. It took Daniel a few days to finally approach Father Michael and ask him for help. He knew that what he was asking was completely crazy, but he saw no other way out. "Father Michael, I keep dreaming about my mother, and it's always the exact same dream. It starts with me entering the cemetery and walking to her grave. Then, after standing next to it and talking to her for a while, I suddenly hear her voice saying, 'Help me.' So I dig up the coffin and I open it, but when I look inside, I always see the same thing." When Daniel finished telling Father Michael about his dream, he told him, "Daniel, I can assure you that that is simply impossible. You were there during her funeral. I know what you are about to ask me, but let me save you the trouble. The answer is no. I'm sorry, but we are not going to dig up her coffin just because of your dreams." Father Michael sounded very resolute, but Daniel was not going to give up just yet. "Please," he begged him. But Father Michael told him, "I am sorry, Daniel. I would do anything to help you, but you are really taking it too far. I cannot authorize this," and then he left. "I'm going to help you, Mom," he whispered. He was determined to dig up that coffin, with or without Father Michael's help. He left the church and went home, already thinking of the best way to carry out his plan. He decided that he was going to do it on Sunday during Mass. Father Michael would be at church, and he would not find out about his plan until it was already carried out. Finally, Sunday came. Daniel got up early and made his way to the cemetery and found his mother's grave. He looked around, but there was nobody else to be seen on the cemetery at this time of day. He took a deep breath and he got to work, hoping that he had made the right decision. He started digging, and finally, he hit something hard. He wiped the dirt off the coffin and attached it to the straps he had brought with him. Using a lifting machine that he rented, he carefully lifted the coffin out of the grave and placed it on the ground next to it. He took a deep breath as he laid his hands on the coffin, ready to finally open it. This would be the moment of truth. But before he could even try to open it, he heard a voice behind him saying, "You have a big problem, Daniel." As he turned, the imposing figure of Father Michael stood outlined against the dim light of the street lamp. "I can explain," Daniel's voice quivered, echoing among the tombstones. Father Michael, for all his stern demeanor, felt a twinge of empathy. Drawing a deep breath, Father Michael said, "You can continue, but once you're done, I'll need to notify the authorities." The priest's words weighed on Daniel like stones. Was he betraying his mother's memory? The decision was made. It was time to face the truth, whatever it might be. With trembling hands, Daniel attempted to open the coffin. At last, with one final effort, the coffin's lid creaked open, revealing a narrow sliver of its insides. The silence was broken by a thought both dreaded to voice. "Did the church know?" Daniel questioned, eyes piercing Father Michael's. A police car, 2 officers stepped out, their faces a mask of professionalism, but eyes betraying curiosity. The officers approached the coffin with caution. They took turns inspecting the emptiness within, their demeanor a blend of skepticism and genuine curiosity. The police exchanged glances, their faces betraying the depth of their confusion. The empty coffin, a grieving son, and a protective priest. How did the pieces fit? Inside his room, Daniel carefully pulled out a well-worn envelope from his pocket, the secret item he'd managed to take from the coffin before the authorities arrived. There was something about it that made his heart race with anticipation. Tearing open the envelope, Daniel found a photo of his mother, younger and vibrant, alongside an unfamiliar man. Scribbled on the back were coordinates and a date. Could this be evidence of a life she led before her supposed death? Digging through old family diaries and journals, Daniel looked for any reference to the lilies or the cryptic meeting of dawn and dusk. As midnight approached and Daniel's room was filled with papers and notes, a soft knock broke his concentration. Peering out the window, he saw the silhouettes of two figures, their faces obscured. Their arrival wasn't random. It was tied to the secrets he was uncovering. The moonlight barely revealed the visitor's features. "We're of the same blood," the taller one whispered, revealing a pendant that mirrored one Daniel had seen in old family photos. Sitting in the dimly lit living room, the visitors began to speak. Their tales intertwined with Daniel's, speaking of secret societies, clandestine meetings, and an ancestral treasure. The letter was a mere introduction to a tale far grander than Daniel had imagined. Spreading out an old parchment, worn by age, the trio began tracing routes under the starry sky. Their journey led them to an old, forgotten district of their city where buildings whispered tales of bygone eras. In the moonlit square, the trio found an old cellar door, almost consumed by time. With bated breath, they opened the entrance to a world untouched by time. The cellar led to a vast underground maze. Guided by the letter and their shared knowledge, they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, facing puzzles that tested their wits and resolve. The walls narrated their lineage's saga, with murals showcasing pivotal moments in their family's timeline. They revealed both their ancestors' honor and betrayals, painting a fuller picture of the story the letter had introduced. The passages converged in a magnificent chamber. Intricate carvings decorated its walls, and at the center stood an ornate pedestal, holding an elaborately crafted box that seemed to hum with an ancient energy. With trembling hands, Daniel opened the box. Instead of jewels or gold, it contained a letter. The script danced with promises and prophecies, signaling that their adventure was far from over. It was an invitation to a future where the past's weight and mysteries would guide their path.